welcome to ACWS's Outcome Tracker training videos. This video, I'm going to walk you through the different types of questions there are in Outcome Tracker and the best uses of those questions. To provide a little bit more detail to our discussion in a previous video about adding questions. So in order to do this, I am going to show you the different kinds of questions. So here we can see the different kinds of questions. First question type is text. Text can be a really useful question type. A text question supplies a text box on your activity or your form that will allow the person entering data to put whatever values they want into that field. Text questions are quite useful, but there are some things that you should be concerned about. Text response questions are difficult to analyze because they are basically qualitative data. So when you go to put in a text box, just make sure that it wouldn't be better suited as a different kind of question, because all these questions are much more easily analyzable than a text box. But sometimes text boxes are necessary. A good example of when you want to use the text box is if other questions. If somebody selects the option other on a drop-down list, then you can use a text response question for if other. We see that happen quite a lot in the database. For example, if I go to the admission intake form and look at the questions, you see a lot of if others. Date response is good for, obviously, for dates. Admission dates, discharge dates. A lot of these questions are already available in the database, so you don't need to add them. But if you wanted a different date for whatever reason, then you would use that. Drop-down list versus multi-select drop-down list. You want to use a drop-down list if the client can or should only choose one option on the list. For example, Aboriginal status is a drop-down list because they're only going to have one status, or immigration status is drop-down because they're only going to have one status. A good example of a multi-select drop-down list is sources of income, because they might have more than one source of income. It's very possible that that is something that could happen. You want to use a drop-down list when you're reasonably sure that each person should only have one answer to that question, and a multi-select drop-down list if you're reasonably sure that it's possible that a person could have more than one answer to that question. A name question is just if you want to put a name in your survey. You probably won't use this too often, but you may have a reason to put a name in a survey. These last four question types are pretty similar to each other. They're just different kinds of numbers. So the number survey is if you want a straight number. You might use this for age or other things. There's a number question right here, number of years in Canada. That's a really good use of a number question. Currency is just like the number, except it's specifically a currency, which will allow you to put a decimal in there. Decimal fraction is used mostly for minutes. If you have counseling or calls or activities that take a certain amount of time, then you might want to record how much time you spent on an activity. You would do that with minutes or hours. And time is the last, and time is basically if you want to put the time a thing happened into a survey. There's a really good example of a time question in the call contact activity. You'll see there's time the call contact started and time it ended. And from that, we can gather how long the call lasted. But if we didn't have both of those questions, we might want to put in a decimal fraction that said number of minutes of call. The nice thing about these four fields is that they can be added together and analyzed in ways that the rest of these cannot because they're specifically numbers. So that is all of the types of questions in Outcome Tracker and their uses, and a brief discussion of the best practices of their use.